way. But we have always to go back to the Lord and to the book of the Bible and see what is the truth says and what Jesus says to us. When he says, I tell you the truth.
Definitely. On this point, this is really,
I don't know if
I'll reiterate the point that was made. The point that was made was being able to distinguish between the truth and the lie. And I think this is really important ultimately because sometimes, and what was also said, was the point of ultimately coming back to the Word of God. And I would say the Word of God in the context of the life of the church fathers, the teaching of the church. I would say the church fathers, I'm not talking about Abuna Michael or Abuna Bulis, I'm talking about like St. Athanasius and St. Cyril, and reading it in the context of the fathers. And if you haven't read the book on the Incarnation, by the way, it's a must-read. It's a Christian classic. C.S. Lewis, anyone here heard of C.S. Lewis? All right, so C.S. Lewis did the introduction on the Incarnation a few years back, I think, probably before he died. So it's a phenomenal book, though, on the Incarnation, and I would really encourage you to read it during this season. And so the idea of what our sister just said is being able to distinguish between the truth and the lie is really important. The lies of the world, the lies of Satan, and even sometimes, y'all, our own distortion of who God is. Sometimes we have a distorted image, a messed up image of who God is. God did this to me because. Right? Sometimes we think that. I heard someone tell my niece one time, if you do this, God is not going to love you anymore. And I told that person years ago, don't ever speak another word to my niece about God again. Because you're going to mess up her image of God. So being able to distinguish the truth from the lie. And I think one of the great ways is by reading the Word itself and also keeping it within the context of the fathers in the life of the church. Okay? Other things that are challenges for us. Let's take two more. Yes? Sin. Okay? Can we expand on sin? Yes. How does sin affect us in living this grace-filled life?
It keeps us away from God.
Okay. Anyone like to expand on that point? This is, I think, a really important point. Yes, you have.
I like the thorns that we were talking about before, like the desire for the world, and like the lust of the flesh and the pride of the life and everything like that. That keeps you from really letting the Word of God take seed in you and really letting it grow. Because as soon as you want to, then you feel like those sins come in and choke that desire, and then after the desire's gone, you just have to fall back into the sin.
Anything else on sin? Yes?
That if you commit so much sin that you're not worthy of His grace.
Say this one again, because this is a big challenge that we have.
That if you commit so many sins that you're not worthy of His grace.
Is this one of the lies that we need to check in the Word of God? Yeah. Right? It's because we sin, not just because we sin, it's without His grace we can do nothing, right? But so absolutely, this is one of those things that comes into our mind sometimes. We say we've sinned, what do we end up doing when we sin? When you start reading the Word and praying, and as soon as you start sinning, what happens? Stop. Stop. And that's when we need Him the most, right? Actually, we're always in need of Him, but I don't know if I can say most or least or whatever, but anything else on sin? Yes?
It's fighting the devil himself, because when you're trying to avoid sinning, it's just like a struggle in yourself. This is a challenge by itself to conquer.
Definitely. Yes?
Well, the question was why not? What prevents us from the grace-filled life?
Yes.
And I think a lot of times not wanting to take on the responsibility of following the Lord and having that grace-filled life. Because it's not always going to be.
Could you start over? Because I think this is a really.
I was just saying that there's a level of responsibility and accountability that, quite frankly, I mean, I don't know about you guys here, but sometimes it's just, you want to stay comfortable with what's familiar, what's working,